Yeah.
Okay, I think that's at 5 past, so I think I can duly introduce Emma, who's the, if I get this right, acting senior curator in charge of free living and parasitic worm collections. And I'm sure she'll explain more about what those are and how they work and what we need to think about to improve our appreciation of them, but also what things we can do to assist where necessary in the great work that they do for us. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Emma.
Ah, thank you very much. I'll just share my screen with you all. So, yeah, hopefully that's
Perfect.
well. So, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I must say, I'm not someone who gets to give talks very often because sadly, I don't get asked nearly as much as many of my colleagues who work on mammals, the deep sea, fish, amphibians. They get asked all the time, and very sadly, worms don't. So I'm very appreciative that Graham thought you might be interested in this talk I gave quite recently that he attended. So I hope that's correct. And um, I'm so passionate about trying to uh, get get the I well get worms known a lot more around for how important they are to us all, but also, as we'll move on to in the second part of the talk, how incredibly fascinating and beautiful and sometimes gross, but in a very interesting way that they are. That they're not just one species of sort of brown animal that people sometimes think they are. They are wonderfully diverse and interesting, but also, fundamental for a sustainable future. So just moving on, that's it. So actually, that title you mentioned, Frank, actually was an old one. We do have now a parasitic worm curator, so I didn't have to
Oh, well.
cover cover them at the moment. So I am back to being the curator of annelids, which is where I want to be. They are definitely my domain. So yeah, the annelids actually cover the three main groups. So the polychaetes, so are marine worms, which are also very important. I would argue not maybe quite as important for our sustainable future, but all of the annelids are incredibly important. Polychaetes do a huge role in filtering and decomposing as well in our oceans. But I thought at the bottom I'd highlight the three groups. The one on the far right is my favorite, I think, of the polychaetes in our collection. So obviously you'll be familiar with ragworms and lugworms, around the coast that fishermen use. But this one is a particularly unique, I think, set of worms. This is Ossidax mucrafloris, and it's so Ossidax is from the Latin meaning bone eating, and mucrafloris is snot flower. So it's a bone-eating snot flower. And these are the worms that you find actually in whale bones right down in the deep. And they're actually degrading the bone material and then again releasing that back into the oceans. So they were a relatively new discovery. And I think absolutely fascinating animals. And these are part of our collection at the museum. So my favorite polychaetes, but it's actually the clitolate animals. You can see these little bands, hopefully, on the two pictures on your left. So obviously the leech and the earthworm. And so these are much more closely related than their polychaete cousins. And yeah, those bands, fleshy bands that I'm sure you've seen on earthworms in your gardens and parks, these show that they're adults, and that's the part of their reproduction that they have the clitellums. And it's these clitellate animals that most interest me, and in particular the earthworms. And as I said, I think these animals are absolutely fundamental for sustainable agriculture, and forestry. And yeah, they are just incredible workers in our soils that I think are hugely undervalued. So even though the museum, when I first started, wanted me to specialize in either parasitic worms or in polychaetes, I rebelled. And yeah, the area of time I get for research is solely on earthworms. So in the UK, we have about 32 different species. Actually, now we think it's 33, just in the last couple of weeks from the West Country. There's been a discovery of quite a large earthworm species, actually, that's quite well established in a forest. That's one that's we know well from continental Europe, but hasn't been in the UK before. So we're just establishing where some colleagues are going to go down to the forest and have a good look. But yes, it looks like they have now established themselves. So yeah, that list might be going up to 33. It's not a big issue like it can be with other groups for kind of alien invaders or anything like that. This is another earthworm species which will do similar jobs to the ones we have. It's only from Europe doing, yes, in sort of similar niches. So yes, it's not a problem. All of our earthworms here were wiped out in the Ice Age, and they got repopulated from refuges in southern Europe. And then we broke off quite early, which is why we've only got sort of 32 or 33 different species, whereas France, for example, has, we think, about 80 different species, and other countries sort of similar numbers. So yes, that wouldn't be a problem. It would be a problem sometimes. Some of the Asian species we can get in our hothouses, I'll mention that later. If they were to establish, they can do some slightly different things, and that could be more problematic. But this species wouldn't be at all. But it's not necessarily just the species that you have, although we're finding out more and more that with the different microbiomes and things these animals have, actually they are all kind of processing things and processing nutrients in particular in slightly different ways. But the big thing that you want to know about earthworms in your soil is whether they're carrying out the fundamental roles that you need. So earthworms are known as ecosystem engineers, and they really do change the environment they're in for the better. So we used to always split them up into 3 different groups. So if you look at the earthworm on the bottom right, I'm sure you'll recognize this worm. So this is Lumbricus terrestris. In fact, the first earthworm that was ever named. So in 1758, Linnaeus named Lumbricus terrestris, and it is an iconic, absolutely iconic species. It's got that sort of flattened tail you can see, so that's how it sort of can hold on in its burrow. If you see a robin really struggling with a worm, it will be almost certainly this one. We also call it the night crawler because it comes up at night. It draws organic material down deep into the soil. It has permanent burrows that it uses. It even makes little offshoots for its cocoons to grow in. Very cool. It pulls leaves right down into the burrow. And these anesic worms, as we call them, these large red-headed or black-headed worms, if you see them, they are fundamental for being able for water to be able to drain through the soil in these deep vertical burrows, but also again, pulling organic matter deep into the soil as well. Then on the top line, you'll see these greeny, grey or pinky worms. These are our endogeic worms. So these are actually the soil feeders. These go through with horizontal burrows, which are really important for bioturbation. they take in that organic matter that's in the soil, take the soil in, they grind it up. They've got all earthworms have like a cropping gizzard, a bit like a bird. They grind up that soil, make that really fine, nice crumb structure. And they, with the symbiotic bacteria in their gut, they can then convert the nutrients into a form plants take up more readily. So these are the real kind of powerhouses. And then bottom left, you see a stripy red worm. So we've got the stripy worms, which are generally the composters, and just the little red worms that you'll find basically on the surface. These eat and break down organic matter left on the surface of the soil and break that down to again release all those nutrients back into the soil again. And it's the combination of having these worms working together that means that your system is working well, that you're getting that natural, bioturbation, drainage, all the things that and nutrient cycling that you want in your soil. So any of these surveys where they say dig a hole, count how many worms, and you'll know if your soil is healthy, that's absolutely not true. There are certain species like Lumbricus rubellus, for example, that we know can survive in really toxic soils. But also you need to have the combination of these for all of these jobs to be happening. You don't want just one species in large numbers. And just in the diagram to make it a bit more visual, you can see there are some of those vertical burrows with a worm in it. You can see those horizontal burrows coming in. And then you can see the areas like logs on the surface, which earthworms love. They're a refuge, but also a source of organic matter. There's a cowpat, which composting worms, if they're not in the compost, they will like that. Even knots in the trees, earthworms can climb up to those, and those quite often have a little area of organic matter that sort of collects in there. And we get some of the epigeic worms in there as well. So that's what really makes for a really good functioning system. And now we know actually the picture is much bigger than that. So instead of breaking it down into these three groups, we now actually have 5 to 6 different groups, and all of them are really fundamental and all have, jobs that need fulfilling to make sure that everything is functioning as it should be. So as I mentioned, they are ecosystem engineers. So they're aerating the soil, creating these vital water drainage channels and enabling plant roots to penetrate deeper in the soil, breaking down the dead organic matter with these gut microorganisms, breaking down the minerals in the soil as well, which are so important, converting all these nutrients to a form the plants can take up more readily. And of course, even outside of that, they are a vital food source for so many of our animals, and animals that potentially people are more invested in as well. Like everybody seems to, love all the bird species. You've got moles, badgers, a huge set, but also other invertebrates. Even some of our leeches rely on earthworms, our amphibians as well. A huge number of animals rely on earthworms as an amazing protein source. And even some flies, which obviously are quite often less loved as well. But I was interested to see this specimen, Caliginosa, a very common earthworm, again in the UK. But you can see 2 fly larvae coming out of this one. I did originally think those fly larvae kind of look quite cute in a way, with those little eyes they've got poking out. So I sent the picture to Erica McAllister, the fly girl at the museum, but she told me actually they were anal scoots, I think. So yeah, it turned less cute after that. But yeah, I think the thing that's really drove me at the start as well with being so passionate about earthworms was the fact that they are so undervalued, I think, maybe more so now, but certainly. So these images are back from 2009 when we started the Earthworm Society of Britain and started basically the recording scheme. And earthworm, well, we in the UK have like amazing system of amateur naturalists. I don't think anywhere in the world there's such a passionate group of people up and down the country who are willing to record natural history all around them. It's absolutely fabulous. But for some reason, even though there were keys to earthworms, I have been at the UK back since about, there's a popular science book back in the 1920s and certainly good keys since the 1960s. But yes, they just haven't been taken up by the public in the same way as other similar groups. So yeah, that's the number of records that we had for the UK from a common woodlouse. But for an earthworm, one of our most common earthworms, it was unbelievably poor. So yeah, we started off the recording scheme for the UK and we produced a key to the earthworms of the UK. And now things are now becoming a lot better. But I'm really passionate about making earthworms accessible to people and really trying to promote that not only are the numbers counted, as I mentioned, but actually they're not that hard to get to species. And people can do it. People can do it. And it's really, really important, I believe, for, as I mentioned, for a sustainable future, especially in agriculture. So my main project at the moment is hopefully next year, my new key to the earthworms of agricultural environments in Europe will come out. And I really hope this generates, a lot more investment in letting earthworms do the bulk of the heavy lifting for us and making our soils so the rich, nutritious place they should be. I was kind of inspired when I went to, actually, maybe I shouldn't say where, but I went to a certain region and I checked their agricultural fields. And after checking, I think it was about 4 different farms we went to, I found maybe three different farms we went to. I found not a single earthworm, which means that all of their produce that they're producing all was being grown basically in a vat of, the fertilizer and, I guess pesticides. And that's not going to make delicious food to eat, but it's also not sustainable for the future. And yet these animals will shift huge amounts of earth. They will do the biodisturbation for us if allowed to. So that's me on my high horse, not being obviously an agricultural specialist. So I'm sure things might not move as fast, or you might not be able to do things in the same bulk, but there must be a way to integrate earthworms much more into sustainable farming. So yeah, I'm really passionate about hopefully getting this implemented. So there'll be 2 keys as part of this, one for arable and pasture and one for vineyards, orchards and olive groves, because actually the earthworms can be a bit different in each of those. And we want to keep the keys as small as possible to be able to enable people to use the keys as easily as possible. So yes, that's my kind of pet project at the moment. But I guess moving closer to home again, the thing people ask me most about, I guess, is how many different species there are in a garden, what they can do to encourage more species into their garden. So there's actually a lot of different species you can find in your local parks and gardens, especially if you have a lot of different niches and habitats for them. So actually, in total, 27 of the 32 UK species have been found in parks and gardens. So that's absolutely huge. Obviously, that isn't the regular figure, but looking back through all of our records, that is as the situation. So generally speaking, though, 8 to 10 different species could be found in an individual garden, and in parks, obviously, even more if you do again have more diverse habitats within that area. So, for example, in London, my small garden over 4 years, I found 10 different species, and they do fall into those differing groups. So to identify earthworms to species, you do have to preserve them. But to be able to tell if you've got those original 3 functional groups, you don't. And it's a fun thing to do in your garden. So if you are looking in the soil and you come across an earthworm, check if it's an adult or not. So if it's got that saddle, and some really small worms will have saddles, so it doesn't matter on size, just check if they've got the saddle. Any of the greeny, grey, pinky ones, you know you've got these endogeic worms that are making these horizontal burrows, and they're processing through your soil and releasing all the nutrients you want. If you've got those larger, sort of over 20 centimetre type worms with either a dark black head, sort of dark brown head, or a deep red head, then you know you've got the anesic worms, so they're producing those vertical burrows that are really important. Or if you've got the smaller red or striped red worms that are either in compost or on closer to the surface of the soil, then you know you've got your epigeics. So that's a really nice thing that that everyone can do, and yeah, gets you looking at worms too, which is always fun. So in local parks and gardens, the way to obviously encourage more species are to have areas like log piles in parks, or in your garden, just a few logs in an area. That's fabulous. I know at the lady at the start of this mentioned about the soils being dry. Obviously, we've had a really dry time at the moment, and that's difficult. Worms will go down in deeper into the soil, and what we call estivate. It's the same as hibernation, just for dry conditions. So some of the soil feeders and the anesics would just go further down, wrap themselves up in mucus, and then they can last it out. The epigeics, it's harder, and that's where refuges do come in. So if you've got partially rotten logs and things, they can sometimes get to the center where there might still be moisture. If you've got plant pots around, they can get under there, and sometimes then be able to get a bit of sort of shade, and moisture could be kept a bit more under there. Yeah, the dry conditions are very difficult for earthworms because, yeah, they breathe basically through their skin. They need to be moist for oxygen to diffuse through. So yes, in these really dry conditions, they do need to estivate deep in the soil or find a refuge, because they will be in trouble otherwise. But they are designed for that. So cocoons are much hardier than the worms themselves. So they will have left cocoons in areas which hopefully then, when the conditions are right, will hatch out again. So it won't wipe out our earthworm species, but yeah, having little refuges is always nice. And if these log piles are in the shade, that's even better. At plant pots, as I remembered, or bricks, things like that help. Having leaf litter, trees, leaving your mowings, not being like massively tidy in your gardens is good for earthworms. You're leaving that lovely organic matter for them to then decompose and release back into the soil. Ponds also fabulous. Even if they're tiny, like this one in the garden, that's still brings moisture and enables a different variety of species to thrive. And of course, composts are absolutely fabulous. Hopefully all the local parks and things are all using compost. And if you've got a little a house and you know, on a small garden, you don't want a big compost, you can even get these little posh pads. I've got a couple of posh pads and the kids love it too. And they're nice little houses for them. They get through all your veg and obviously give you absolutely fabulous vermicompost, which is the best compost you could possibly get. So I really advocate having the compost. Sorry, this slide didn't work very well. I didn't realize the others hadn't added. There should be 4 papers on here, but there's many papers basically just showing that having earthworms in your soil means your plants grow much faster, and they're more healthy and they're better. There's huge amounts of published research to show this. But then the last part of the talk, I was just then going to wow you with also the beauty of earthworms. They're not just fundamentally important, but they're also incredible. And the person who really inspired me to take on the mantle of earthworms was my first scientific visitor I hosted at the museum. His name was Victor Pop, just an absolute idol kind of mine. He's just so inspirational and so giving of his time. I spent three separate study trips with him in Romania, staying at the institute he worked at. And he took me up into the Carpathian Mountains where he first discovered the biggest earthworms in Europe there. The particular biggest is Octodrilus pomagnus, but there's actually a range of species that are all like really impressive animals. And hopefully I can show you a bit of a video of him because he is just, an incredible person.
Here we are, the part of my collection. I keep the worms in glass vials. And a particularity of my collection is that the worms are almost all very straight, very easy to handle.
Any worm discovery is exciting, but some worms make living legends of those who discover them.
I will start with the shocking piece of my collection. It's hard to describe the feeling of a specialist when he finds something new. I was astonished because it was so long. He can be as long as 1.5 meters. When I examined this animal in the field, I observed the clitellum was unusual. It seemed to show me that I deal with an unknown species. And happily it was really a new species, and I describe it and name it Octodrilus permagnus. Permagnus meaning the largest, the longest one. It is long. It has at least 30-35 centimeters now. I can tell it's the goal of the taxonomist to find and describe something new. And if it happens to be large and to be very interesting, happiness is complete.
So that was Victor showing you the largest earthworms in Europe. But if we look at the largest around the world, so in the UK, Lumbricus terrestris is our largest species, which can get up to an absolute maximum of 40 centimeters. But in the world, currently, the owner of the status of being the largest is Megascalides australis, which can get up sort of over 2 meters. It's obviously very hard to say an exact size because they do, obviously, as they move, they constrict and then elongate. And so, it's hard to measure them. But that's what currently has the title. And there's a great, in Life in the Undergrowth, there's a great clip that David Attenborough does. I'm not sure if the sound is great on here, but it's worth just showing you because it's just a fabulous clip of these amazing animals.
Like so many of the inhabitants of the undergrowth, earthworms can only live in a moist environment, but they are found in soils of every continent except Antarctica. This small valley in southern Australia is home to one of the rarest and the most extraordinary of all earthworms. And I know they're around because I can hear them. Those gurgling noises, believe it or not, are being made by giant earthworms as they squelch along their water-filled burrows. The vibrations of my footsteps are enough to stir them into activity. They never come to the surface, but in places where there's been a small landslip, you can sometimes find their burrows. They are over an inch in diameter, and in them, if you're very lucky, you may occasionally find one of these. This is one of their egg cocoons, and it's enormous. If I hold it up against the light, I can see the young worm inside, wriggling. It'll take a year for this to develop. And when the young one finally does break free, it's already 20 centimeters long. Huge. It will take a further 5 years to reach full size and become this remarkable creature. So the question is, how long is a giant earthworm? Well, it's not an easy question to answer. The fact of the matter is, they're rather delicate creatures, and they break. If I was so unfeeling as to try and stretch it, well, I guess it might stretch to a couple of meters, almost 6 feet long. How long they live? Well, some say up to 20 years, but we really don't know. And we certainly don't know how they manage to mate deep underground as they squelch their way through their lonely tunnels.
So that was, that was the largest earthworm known in the world, and absolutely incredible animal. But there is some competition because, as David Attenborough said, and we said earlier, it's very hard to actually measure exactly how long that earthworm species is. And Sam James, who's done a lot of work in the Amazon, he's found this giant earthworm cast, and he thinks the earthworm that produced that casting is probably larger than Megascelides australis. So he is in the hunt for that worm and thinks it would definitely be bigger. And then Danuta Pliszko from South Africa, another fabulous legend in earthworm taxonomy. She works in South Africa and believes her Rappy could be bigger again. So just a very last, if you can indulge me one more time, just a very last little video clip, if that's okay.
To dig for earthworms very close to rhino is not safe. You never know what can happen, especially when you are digging, not looking what the animal is thinking. It's not danger, it's pleasure. I started from the scratch, just having few specimens to describe. Now I have got with 50,000. I can tell you about one collection which was the most magnificent. This is just beauty. It was a greenish and thick, about 2 inches. And it was huge. It was beautiful. I can give you a picture if you like.
So yes, which one of these worms will end up being the largest, I'm not sure, but they are unbelievably impressive animals. But yeah, it's not just about the size of earthworms too. It's the coloration as well. So this is a worm I described from Nicaragua, and it's a beautiful blue color. So we called it azul because it's blue in Spanish. Sadly, there are other blue worms. This is a very blue worm from Australia, Terrace walkeri. And yeah, this is fabulously blue. I believe it's even got on one of the sort of tourist attraction things, which is amazing for worms. When I talk about blue worms, I do quite often tend to talk about this one. But that is bias. I will stop. But I think the most beautiful earthworm to be found was found again by Sam James, this time from the Philippines. This is Middletoni and Archiphyratima Middletoni. And this we call the fried eggworm. I think you can probably see why. But it's also got that bluey tint. But yeah, just fabulous colours. I think it's the most beautiful worm. But even from Kew Gardens, I mentioned we have introduced species from, well, again, not bad because they're restricted to the hothouses. But yes, these are Asian species. They call them sometimes the jumping worms because they're really vigorous. They can actually sort of leap in the air. They move in quite a different way. They're fabulous to see, but also they've got incredible iridescence. This picture isn't actually doing it justice. They've got beautiful iridescence on them. We've also got our own glowing worm as well that you get here. It's got proper luminous qualities, Microscolex phosphoreus. I'm trying at the moment to get some really nice footage of it because no one's really captured it, but it really, if you turn all the lights out, it really glows. And there's an excellent example of them that lives in France as well. So just fabulous qualities. They've also got the gory factor. This one has been preserved, actually cannibalizing another different species of earthworm. So if you like the gore, that's there too. And I think they're incredible too, how they can evade predation. They can drop their own tails, or some certain species. So this is Aparectidia longa, a UK species, and this is it dropping its tail. So then if it drops its tail, that tail end will keep twitching. So the birds will hopefully go for that tail end and they'll be able to escape. And our common composters are able to produce this bright yellow goo. I'm sure you've probably seen it if they get irritated. And that, again, is a really great way to avoid predation. So they can use really clever kind of tactics. Anyone that thinks earthworms are boring, they're really not. Oh, and I just put this in at the end as this hatched out the other day. I was just seeing if a little baby earthworm from my compost took a little cocoon and it hatched out, which I was very pleased to see. But yes, just to say as well, they have like really interesting reproductive strategies. Lumbricus terrestris, in fact, they sort of line up together to make sure they're the right size to mate with the right worm. And yeah, they can produce these incredible little cocoons, which are much hardier, as I mentioned, than they themselves even. And then the young can hatch out from that. And Lumbricus terrestris, again, even makes, as I mentioned, those little nooks in their burrows to house their cocoons. So yeah, hopefully I've been able to inspire you. It sounds like you guys are an excellent audience in that you maybe appreciated the earthworms already, which is incredible. But yeah, hopefully a few more facts that you have to maybe encourage others to, yeah, appreciate our little friends too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. I think we'll throw it open for questions. I was just interested. You did talk about the fact that log piles can be a refuge. Is there more? We keep hearing about the other things we can do. That the untidy gardens are good for a range of invertebrates, and therefore for the animals that feed on them, and so on. So, other than log piles, are there other things we should be doing or could be doing? Are there the wrong times of year to dig over? We're trying to move to a no dig gardening, but are there better or worse times of year for digging gardens from perspective of preserving worms?
Um, well, yeah, so ideally the no dig is the best for earthworms. But yeah, digging them up when they're estivating wouldn't be ideal. So when the soil's really dry, it's best not to uncover them, but also to sort of enable the wetter parts of the soil to then become drier as such. So yes, I would ideally avoid digging
Being dry.
in those times. But in terms of encouraging worms into the garden, it's definitely, as you mentioned, it's the untidy kind of system. It's having more organic matter for them, having compost bins, having areas of moisture like little ponds or things like that there to be able for them to be a lot more moisture to be stored, but also having areas of sort of border as opposed to lawn. They'll have different levels of organic matter, and having pots and things like that. Just areas for earthworms to kind of shelter in when they need it. But
Great,
yeah,
thanks very
that'd be
much.
the main things I'd say.
Stuart and then Ben.
I'd like to say thanks for a really entertaining talk.
Oh,
and,
thanks.
and I really admire your enthusiasm.
Oh, thank you.
My first question is, are there any bad earthworms?
So in the world, yes. None of the bad earthworms are as bad as necessarily other species, but yes, like Pontoscolex corypheus, it's an earthworm which is around a lot of the globe. So although it's more a sort of South American species, you can find it in Asia and some areas in Europe it's coming into as well. And it's actually known to compact the soil a bit more. So it's not the most ideal species to have. Yes, it's it's still doing some of the good sort of nutrient cycling, but yeah, nowhere near as much, and it's adding compaction to the soil. But obviously, there are problems of even our European species in North America in some of their forests, because it is always good to have earthworms where they should be rather than where they shouldn't be. And in some areas of North America, they had a forestry system where they needed leaf litter to kind of build up to a high level, and it protected some delicate saplings and things that had very delicate bark systems. And I know earthworms, European earthworms, were then introduced in very large numbers, I think, for fishermen and things like that. They wanted Lumbricus terrestris and worms like that, and it was just easier for them. And they've then taken over. All the leaf litter levels have absolutely plummeted because that's their bread and butter. That's what they love, exposing all these delicate plants, and then their mammals have come through and wiped out areas with these delicate saplings. So there has been a lot of talk from North America about the European earthworms having a big negative impact. But generally speaking, in terms of earthworms, it's only really Pontoscolex that people say is doing negative things to the soil in general. But obviously, we have problems with other worms. So we've got the New Zealand flatworm that's having a negative effect, especially in Northern Ireland, actually, on our earthworm populations, because it's obviously, it is an alien invader that's come in and it's really preying on particularly our anisic earthworms. But we're finding out all in Northern Ireland in our recent surveys, actually all the earthworm numbers are down. So yes, there are a few sort of not quite so beneficial worms.
In general, all our garden worms are goodies.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Great, thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, and just to echo his thoughts, Emma, thank you so much. I mean, you joked a bit at the start that your paleontologist colleagues tend to get invited to more talks than you do, but there's a real relevance to this. And I think we all see earthworms, but it's always very difficult to appreciate and understand the differences. Like I didn't realize there were different kinds that aerated versus did different shit. So that was fascinating.
Thanks.
You've talked about how we can help earthworms, but implicit in what you were saying about the area you visited, there's just there are dead areas of soil. Is that more the sort of the deep ploughing that's causing the issue, or is that literally just pesticide use that's kind of having unintended consequences?
I think in that particular area, it's because the farming has been way too intensive. There's been no recovery. I think because the particular produce that they are producing is only allowed to be grown there, I think. And I think they are overproducing and yet not allowing organic matter to then be put back into the soil and back in. And so, then they've just basically got sand and chemicals. I think that is the thing. So, I guess it's hard to, because I don't know about the economics of everything. I guess those things are maybe hard to manage, but it's a real eye opener of just how it's best not, if possible, to do agriculture. I know I saw there was a thing about vineyards with earthworms, and they were saying once they started really looking at earthworms and vermicompost going in, actually even their wine tasted better. I think everything tastes better if it's done in a much more natural way, and earthworms just do all those jobs for you. So it was just a massive eye-opener to me, and a real thing of like, we don't want agriculture to go down that route. No, I don't think it's good for anyone.
Yeah, I think it's where soil becomes that sterile growing medium, like you might see in the Middle East or the US, where they're growing in deserts, and it's a holding state. You might as well do hydroponics or that kind of thing. So I see Mark just put his hand up, but if I could squeeze one last question in, which is it's completely escaped my brain actually. So Mark, you can go. Sorry, I'll remember in a second.
We'll come back to Ben. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Emma. In America, vermicomposting and vermiculture is a much bigger business than in this country. Yep. I have my own worm farms, and I help out on an organic farm with the production of worm patterns. And as a profitability side, he saves 1 in 4 bags of fertilizer he's using for seeds and things like that. Why do you think is it a government initiative, a council initiative, or what? Why is there not more emphasis put on vermicomposting and vermiculture?
I really don't know. To be honest, when I met Graham, it was because I was doing a talk, but at a vermicomposting event, which was amazing for me because it's something I want to know a lot more about. But they talked about exactly that, of in America vermicomposting is huge, and yet here it's really hard to break through and get it across to everyone how important it is, and also how fabulous that product is. It's the best product you could have, but why exactly? I don't know. I assume it's government investment. I assume, but yes. Sorry, Graham might be best for giving you the. Actually, maybe I should find out the exact reason they gave. I think it was government investment, but I'll go back to the gentleman from the Isle of Wight who organised the event and who set up his own very impressive worm farm now, and I'll see what exactly it was he said, but I think it was government funding. But it just seems crazy to me. It should be much bigger here, and that's fabulous that that's what you're doing.
Thank you.
Ben, did you recall your?
I did, yeah, I remember what I thought it was very interesting when you talked about the benefits of the earthworms, and some of that was using I think it's bacteria in their guts to process minerals, Emma. Do earthworms and these mitochondrial fungi networks that we're hearing so much about in the soil, are they related or are they just sort of side by side?
So they're side by side basically, but they are all working together to do those same things. Basically, it's it's incredible the amount of work that they're doing in slightly different ways. Yeah. But it's all of them just working together basically. So in the earthworm's guts, it's bacteria, but also sort of protozoa and other soil organisms. But yeah, they're just sort of working alongside each other to do this nutrient conversion.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time, Emma. It was really good to hear from you.
No, thanks for listening.
No, I think, I mean, you have such an enthusiasm and an infectious passion for your topic that it's very hard not to be caught up in it and say, well, yes, tell us more. We want to hear more. Sue, a question.
Yeah, thank you. So, interested in all the points about the garden, and we can easily start to relay that to residents. The other bit is that we also have our connections with growers that are using are not necessarily organic because they say it's so expensive to get registered, but their methods are really great. Or people are buying small pieces of land and are starting to work towards doing it sustainably. How can we say, have you thought about using worms for your composting, for your organic matter? How can we link that idea to growers that are working but not necessarily using and don't live on the Isle of Wight?
Well, I think it's very easy to set up your own compost. So I would definitely encourage them to give it a go, because I think they'd see results if they started to use vermicompost. But also it would be interesting if they started to actually look at what worms that they've got in their soil, have a think about what practices they are using. So are they, tilling the soil, or are they not? Because obviously if they're going through and tilling the soil, that's obviously important. But actually, if you let earthworms do that themselves, then you're not wiping out all the anisic worms, which generally happen, and the surface dwellers. It's usually only the endogeics which can really survive intensive tilling, which then narrows you down to just having one of those three important groups rather than all three, which means then they won't be able to do that job for you.
Okay. Sorry, Emma, just because it's I don't understand the terminology very well. So your report.
Sorry, I get so
it's learning. So I would think neither of these two things that I'm thinking of, the vegetable growing and the farm, would be tilling. You're saying, so then you got the analysis of their soil content for worms.
Yes.
And then you said, could you repeat what you said to do?
Definitely having a go with their own vermicomposting. So yeah, having their own compost heap, and actually, yeah, trialing using vermicomposting on their land if they can, because I think Mark obviously is more of an expert in vermicomposting than me, but it is just, yeah, a fabulous product that you could do yourself, or get advice from a vermicomposter, and And yeah,
How do you spell
vermicomposting? V-E-R-M.
V-E-R.
Oh yeah, the worms were the vermes.
So see, I'm starting at basics here, Emma, but we
no,
still have a
that's
chance to
great.
spread the word thermocomposting.
Vermicomposting,
Right. As in Velenamia and St Albans and all that. Brilliant.
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage that, and yeah, and then see how they get on. But definitely, if you can get the worms to do the heavy lifting for you, it's a win all round, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
So thanks again, Emma. It's been excellent and informative, but really enjoyable. And as you can see from the questions, there's a real buzz about the thing. I do think, and tell us if we can do lobbying on your behalf, the Natural History Museum has to reduce the dinosaur toys it does and have some worm toys. Because we should be reaching out to the kids and saying, right, here's what you can do that is junior science and thinking about that rather than just crystal growing or discovering a dinosaur skeleton that's been tucked away in clay. There must be things that. So that's the other challenge for you is think of how you can transfer your passion and excitement into a kid's toy that we can then encourage the Natural History Museum to stock.
You see, I would love that. I would love that. The museum will tell me that the sales of the dinosaur toys are a lot greater, but I agree with you. It's more important.
They're greater because that's what they sell. They produce. You don't produce one for you, and we need. If we're going to, and the growth of vermiculture, and it's great to have people on today who've got that background, but equally we've seen that people who don't have that background are keen to find out more and to learn. And I think we recognise the growth in no-dig cultivation, the need to actually work in a positive collaboration with our environment means worms should be becoming more important, and the more we can do to teach the next generation, the better. So thank you very much indeed. I don't think we've any more questions, so I think it just remains to thank you again. It's been tremendous. I think Graham will already be back to tell us all what we're doing next week, but in the meantime, thanks all for joining us, but thanks in particular to Emma for sharing her passion and excitement and introducing us to the world of worms. Fascinating.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
I've loved it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.